Welcome to the Family Office, planning for the people who matter most.
So, good to be back, but I noticed something extremely odd today when I sat here to talk about tech issues, right? And you're absolutely right. I mean, Len, my original trade was in tech, and whenever that's why we always say 99% uptime, because whenever you do have downtime in tech, it's never down for a little bit. Like if it's down, it's down. And you're like, why is it always down when the stakes are high? Like, it's like, damn this, and you start sweating, right? So that's how I knew I was born to be an entrepreneur when I got into the tech world. And when we had our first server meltdown, I was like, everyone was like, oh my God, we finally got it back up. And this was in a call center, right? That's where I worked. And when it's down, they can't make phone calls, so they can't market. It's like these are the good old days of telemarketing outbound call centers, man. Doldrums of the most hated areas of marketing in the world, right?
The big call rooms with 30, 40, 50 people. I
was in a 400 seat call center. 400 seats.
Whoa.
It was gnarly, right? So the system goes down and they get it back up. And this is my first job and we're in the IT and everyone's like going, how you guys feeling? And I'm just sitting there and going, that was awesome. It's like, can we do it again? They're like, wasn't that stressful? And I was all, no, it was great.
And I think that's the thing about entrepreneurship is that you have to be cut from a different cloth to do the business of an entrepreneur because one, it requires an unnecessary amount of faith because you're doing things before you have any guarantees of any return. You got to have a great amount of energy, enthusiasm. You have to be optimistic. And when I say faith, I'm not talking about like I'm a Christian faith. I'm not talking about that. Just belief in something that hasn't yet manifested. And so, entrepreneurship, as I've said before, it sounds super sexy, but it is not for the faint of heart, man. And so, your point.
For sure. Mm-hmm. My tech issue wasn't as big today. My tech issue was that I have to move up getting myself a new chair faster on the list of things to do. Because when I sat down today, my first 5 minutes, I realized there's like a hole and I'm leaning over here to the left. And it's like, I know because I have 3 teenage kids that sit in this chair and they're just, they're just becoming men and they're just taking out everything, right? Like everything is not teenager made, right? And it's like, as having have lived through those days of having 2 teenage boys, right?
We went through so many different things. So I get it, man. So speaking of going through so many different things, talk about all these things that America is going through right now.
I think it's exciting. I think it's exciting. I think my theory that I proposed a couple weeks ago is starting to come to fruition. And that is that the world order we are watching the world order change. We're watching 80 years of NATO, European political monarchy influenced politics on America diminish. And we're watching that go away. NATO is weak. Europe is weak. It's dragging the world and they know it. I mean, Europe is weak right now. They are very weak collectively. Even Germany is weak with a lot of the things that they have done to create instability in their markets. So you see that happening. You really do see that happening, Len. Davos was absolutely crazy. I mean, Trump and his team, I don't think there's any. It's very strange because even when you watch CNN feeds from Davos, these guys are CNN is calling these guys out, like is calling the normal people that they would defend out. And then, Davos was crazy, but I think the biggest thing for me, crazy thing coming out of Davos is Gavin Newsom is exploding and imploding before our eyes. Like this guy is in a corner. I don't know why he was even there. Like why a governor would be there. Also you see it happening before our eyes, and it is very crazy. The framework has been laid for Greenland for the acquisition or whatever that deal is going to happen. And then you brought up a good point, which was, again, the Epstein thing. And why aren't we talking about this? And then obviously, the ICE stuff that's going on. another person is killed or has been killed. And again, I don't think it's anyone's fault except for I looked at it, I weighed the objective information, and it's like, dude, if you're peacefully protesting, my question would be, why do you have a gun on you in the streets?
Okay, let's deal with one at a time, because I definitely want to dig into that.
And I think that sets the tone for where we're going. But what are your thoughts on it, Len? Because I'll let you go first and let your start, because I already think I've already have laid out some groundwork. I'm thinking my prediction, you're seeing it happen. You're seeing it.
All right, so let's start off with Davos and the whole craziness that went on there from my perspective. And my goal is to be as objective as possible, because I just want to learn and understand truth in reality, no spin, no politics. So what I looked at is Trump's approach goes very much along with what you're saying about the weakening of NATO. And I believe that his motivation is really what you said, but I look at what you said from a different perspective. You said earlier that you believe that we're in the midst of a new world, like a changing world order, right? A new world order. And right now, ever since the Bretton Woods Agreement back in the 1940s, the United States was the world superpower. And the world order was U.S. number one, U.S. domination. The dollar is the world's reserve currency. OPEC is pegged to the dollar. World global interactions, geopolitical terms are based on what goes on with the United States, and the United States being at the forefront of global politics. Now, when you say that there is a changing of the world order, I believe what you're saying is true, but I don't think that you and I necessarily, at least as I'm listening to you, agree in terms of what that really means. When I hear you say the new world order is changing, I look at China as an existential threat to take the United States out of the number one position. And what I believe is that Trump understands that. And because we currently dominate the number one position, that means currently he has the greatest amount of leverage to take action. So let me unpack this for a bit, because I really have a thesis behind what's going on, and I want to get your feedback on it. Here's my thesis: that the United States, and specifically Trump, was elected by the population because the younger groups of people saw inequality expanding, meaning their ability to go to school, get a job, get a home, travel, have a little leisure, live a middle-class lifestyle without having to pay exorbitant amounts of money for living and buying food and all of those things. They are seeing that erode away. And that erosion and the mindset behind that erosion is based on the fact that this growing inequality is creating this populism that's happening. So out of that is birthed this whole idea of America first. Trump ran on that. We need a strong man to be able to have the guts and the desire and the wherewithal to be able to position America first unapologetically. And so we had Obama come in and say, yes, we can, but the generation really didn't see much of a change. And then you had Trump 1, who came and people were like, he's a little too abrasive for us. Let's look at something different. Then you had Biden come in, and then he had failed policies. So they were like, well, the best that we have right now is Trump. And then you had this growing percentage of the electorate from the Latino population say, we don't want to go to socialism because we saw that in Cuba. We saw that in Venezuela. We saw that in Colombia. And Latinos aren't a monolith. So because they're not a monolith, there were a lot more of them who came around and voted for Trump. So because of that, he became that person that says, you know what, man, I see that strong man. I see, that aligns with my machismo, male dominated perspective. This is an alignment. I don't like socialism. He's the better choice. I'm not voting for that lady. Are you kidding me? No, it's not going to happen. So now the stage is set. Trump comes into office. Now he's on his second term and he says, you know what? Let's let her rip. I don't have anything to lose. We're going to go for it. And I think what he's saying is like, you know what? Screw it. Because if I don't do it and I'm willing to be the bad guy. I'm willing to be unpopular. So might makes right. We're in a position where the dominant country, which is America, is losing its power because, again, as I mentioned in previous podcasts, the United States is declining because of, our debt and our deficit and all of those things. And the only thing that's going to get us back on power, back to the number one spot for perhaps another generation, is to seize the moment when we have it. So let's grow our military so we can keep everybody afraid that we'll nuke them if they decide to do something, or we'll send in our fighter planes if they decide to take advantage of us. So people are like, hey, we want Trump to go ahead and do that. Okay, I'm almost done. Now we have Davos. So now with Davos, you had Trump establishing this board of peace. Did you hear about all of that? This board of peace. Okay, so in this board of peace, he appoints himself as the person that's the head of the board for the rest of his life. And the only way he can get off is if it's a unanimous decision from the rest of the board, or he's incapacitated. But even beyond his presidency, he will still be a part of this board. And if you want to have lifetime membership, you got to put up $1 billion. You got to put up $1 billion. So then during this whole time in Davos, Kushner comes up and he starts talking about this new Gaza and how it can be, beachfront property. We can have great homes and we can have this bastion of peace and working all together in harmony. But I'm sorry, you don't have a voice from the Palestinians in the Gaza contributing to this conversation. So that's a farce. And then with this whole idea of the board of peace, you have people paying to play, but you don't see any of the G7 that's a part of it because the other countries are concerned that the board of peace will become this de facto entity that negates the power of NATO. And Trump is like, NATO has no power because if it's not for the United States, NATO doesn't have any teeth to put into anything. So right now, when you're in a position where where you have the potential to die, you'll do anything that it takes to survive. And I believe that in Trump's mind, I'm not putting any value on it if it's good or bad. Right now, he's using his leverage to put America in a position to maintain its dominance for the foreseeable future. And that's what I see what's happening. I've said a lot, Chris. I could keep going, but I'll stop there. I want you to tell me, am I blowing hot air? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Where do you stand on everything?
I am shocked that you haven't tried to bring up Newsom. Because I know that
he's such a small part of the equation in that whole big old
I'm
thing.
glad you said that. And you're finally acknowledged that he is insignificant. Because
right now
you're
seeing, for sure.
You're seeing him become so insignificant right now, and you can see it in his eyes. You're like, damn, this dude's not doing good right now. Like he's coming down right now. It's falling apart, and you see it happening. And it's just crazy because you wouldn't have thought that just those quick plays would happen out like that. It's just interesting to me. But look, here's the thing. As far as the inequality, the whole argument with the inequality, I understand that, and I could definitely relate to that because I remember I remember when I was coming up as an entrepreneur, and this was during the Obama administration, and we were coming out of the Great Recession, and it was like, damn, this is tough, dude. I remember gas prices at $5 a gallon. I remember trying to make it work on a day, and it was like, dude, this is. And you saw it happening there. You saw people getting wealthy. You saw people making money, and you saw it happening in a way where you were like, wait a minute, they're going by a different set of rules. They're playing by a different set of rules. Mm-hmm. And I can definitely say now that level of inequality today in America is probably more in proportion than it ever has been. There are more people.
Oh, no doubt.
Right. And that
the haves and the have-nots, the gap is widening for sure.
100%. And you can see that happening. You know it's happening, and you can feel it. But at the same time, there are more people making obviously more money. The quality of life has increased. People are living longer. There are all these other positives are happening. Now, more would say, yes, more people are making $100,000 a year because that's just becoming more of a baseline now where it's like you need to be at 100,000 to even survive. So I do understand that when you weigh the data that way. But the inequality thing is always going to be there. The inequality thing is always going to be there. And look, you can never have 100% equality. You can't. And that's the dangerous part when we start talking about inequality, because a lot of people will bridge that gap in their head and they'll go, well, communism sounds good, and equality sounds good. But then when they don't look at it and they go, but it never works. Mm-hmm. And wherever it's tried, it always fails, because at the end of the day, we're all human. And at the end of the day, I don't want the same stuff you want, dude. And I don't want to work the same way you work, and blah, 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 blah. That's why you could drive a Mercedes or a BMW or a Porsche or a Cadillac or whatever other luxury brand is out there, because it gives you options. It gives you choices, and people like that. It's exactly the reason why you can buy McDonald's, or you could buy Jack in the Box or Del Taco, because people want choices, and that's what goes away. And then again, you have to rely on the virtue of human beings, and the virtue of human beings is innately selfish. So you can't, the means of production is controlled by the collective. Well, the collective is always controlled by these groups of elders or spiritual people or leaders, or it doesn't work.
Politicians,
or politicians, right? Mm-hmm. And people ought to go study Stalin, and they ought to go study Chairman Mao, and they ought to go study. They can fit up. Look, I mean, I don't want to get down that rabbit hole, but Trump is liberating the world right now of communism and socialism before our eyes. Like Cuba, say what you want to say. Yes, there's going to be people that are going to say it's bad, but if the U.S. went and liberated Cuba, it'd be a net positive in the majority, and that's what democracy is. It's the majority rules, right? So if the majority of people are going to be positive as a result of Cuba being liberated and Venezuela being liberated and all these countries that are stuck, that's just a good thing, right? I mean, why wouldn't we want that to be happening? So I don't think
Can I just jump in real quickly about the inequality part, just so I can make sure you and I are arguing from the same perspective? So I think what I really want to clarify is, when I'm talking about inequality, I'm talking about the disparity between the ultra wealthy and those who don't, because what made America America effective was the middle class, because we all know that there's always going to be a portion of poor people and a portion of rich people. It's the middle class that makes all the difference. And so, we've talked about this on previous episodes. Right now, the middle class is evaporating because home ownership and the pathway from going from high school to trade or high school to college to a job, those avenues are becoming less and less. And now people that are young are very, very concerned about what AI means, because under a traditional capitalistic system, and I'm going to turn it back over to you. I didn't want to hijack your conversation.
No, you're good. You're good.
So the transition like when you look at a traditionally like a purely capitalistic society, if everything were to happen based on the worst fears of the introduction of AI, is that you'll have the Metas, the Teslas, the Oracles, Nvidias, and a 5 or 6 other companies control everything. Because if Tesla controls all the robots that go out, where's all the money going to? If they control all of the cars that are driverless, where does all of the money go to? So if you have all of this enormous concentration of wealth without there, so there's only 2 outcomes of that. Either we have to be so productive that new job classes fortifies another type of middle class, because when you had the Industrial Revolution come out of agriculture, there were a whole other set of new jobs that people could do. The difference here, Chris, is that right now we're not projecting a whole nother group of jobs that human beings can do to earn capital to be able to participate in the middle class. So if that's the case, either one of 2 things can happen. Either there has to be something out there that's not on the radar. There's universal basic income, and universal basic income is essentially communism and socialism. It's just cloaked in a different way. So I see AI as being a very scary thing if we don't have a way for human beings to work. Because then it's like, okay, well, the inevitable aspect is that all the money is going to fall into the hands of about 50 people, and the rest of us are going to starve. And they're like, I'm not going to have that. So the only other option to that is to revolt, take the power, and redistribute power back into the hands of the have-nots. So when I say inequality, that's what I mean specifically.
No, I'm tracking 100%. And I love the fact that you bring it back to that conversation because again, these are ultimately the crazy ideas that Marxists and communists and enlightened or self-righteous, ultra-realistic people get in their minds, is that they go, oh, we have to come in and control. But what they don't understand is that they just need to let the free markets do its thing. Because I think it's very short-sighted when people second-guess the power of capitalism, or they second-guess the power of love. Throw them both in there at the same time. Look, love makes people do crazy things. Love makes people kill people, right? Capitalism, when you leave it alone and you let free markets leave themselves alone, it's evolutionary. It will figure itself out. Like right now, the Y chromosome, you've probably heard of this, like the Y chromosome is disappearing, right? When you look at X chromosomes versus Y chromosomes are disappearing. The amount of DNA in a Y chromosome is disappearing, right? It's shrinking, right? And it has been for a long time. So, oh my God, males are going to go extinct, right? But that's not the case. What you're seeing evolution work. You're seeing things adapt and change. You'll see a different variant of that somehow. Things go across different evolutionary paths all the time. It happens. So capitalism will always find a way. So when we hear about and this is where I think most of the inequality comes from right now. Most people are looking at this and they're blaming capitalism for the inequalities that exist today. No, capitalism is the scapegoat. Capitalism is the scapegoat right now for the inequality, because the real inequality, and we're seeing this happen right now, the real inequality, a lot of the inequality, and it's what's making people rise up and wanted to vote for Trump a second time and still support him. Look, JD Vance and Marco Rubio are the most popular politicians today. Today, when you poll them, they are the most. Marco Rubio and JD Vance are the most popular, and they're in the 40s. They're the most popular politicians today. Why? Because they have a spine, and they're calling out the BS, and they're giving it to you in a way that, at least for me, I understand it. When Marco Rubio talks and when JD Vance speak, I understand them. I hear them. When and who do you have from the alternate leadership in politics that you hear right now and you understand them? Who? I don't know who I can hear from the Democratic Party, because let's face it, you and I both hate the fact that there's 2 parties. You and I aren't even a Republican or a Democrat. You're an independent, I'm a libertarian, registered. Like, We're not even in those camps, but let's face it, we got to play by that construct today, right, Len? Unfortunately, we're in that system. But who can you even hear on the Democratic side leadership right now and go, yeah, you know what, I can hear them and it makes sense to me right now. It makes me feel good in some way. That's the problem. So whether you like J.D. Vance or you like Marco Rubio, everyone can hear them right now, and no matter where you're at, and that's why it's so loud and so deafening right now for the opposition, because they hear this and they go, Hakeem Jeffries at night when he goes to bed, he goes like this. He grabs his phone and he texts Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance in a group text, and I bet Newsom's in that too. And they goes, yeah, bro, you kind of making sense to me, dude. Even they sit there, and they would never get on a text because these guys have so much ego that they never even admit to it. But at night, I guarantee you they're sitting there going, damn, dude, even these guys are making sense to me. Because here's the fact. What's happening right now is everyone is waking up to the steaming pile of fraud and waste. It goes beyond waste, fraud, and abuse. It is outright money laundering theft. And Len, you've been in the financial business at one point for a very long time of your business career. I'm still in the financial business. You and I have taken anti-money laundering courses. When you see what's happening in our states, Minnesota, Ohio, California, you name it, all of them, even Texas at local micro levels. Thankfully, in states like Texas and Florida, it's not at the macro level, like it's not at the top like it is in California and Ohio and Minnesota. You are seeing the fact that we are broke, busted, and disgusted because our own local municipalities have been asleep at the wheel, letting this fraud happen. And then on the back end, when they are awake, they're lining their pockets.
So
and you have independent auditors who have confirmed this. $70 billion in California is missing. And they flagged 9 social programs are egregiously fraudulent. Food stamps is one of them. When you look at this is the inequality that we're talking about today. And the inequality isn't about the haves and the have-nots right now. The inequality is about the haves that have busted their asses, who have done what they needed to do to get ahead in America and do what was right. And even those who went to school and bought into that sham and did that, got a degree, spent money, got into debt to do it, to become a productive member of society. This goes beyond being AI'd out. This is the fact that we've woken up and now finally see these guys have screwed us so badly that we're broke. It's like, and there's no fixing it, because it's like, it's so, and I haven't even gotten to all the other topics to answer, because Len, it's so crazy to me, because people have woken up today and yes, the inequality still exists. And I'll address that in a minute with the AI inequality, because that is a concern, but capitalism will innovate us out of that. Right? We have yet to even see the amount of innovation, the amount of jobs, and the amount of productive value, and the amount of jobs that are going to come back, like, that are not here yet. Like, when you hear people speak, when you hear a Kevin O'Leary speak, and he says, yeah, we have yet to see the next 10 to 15 years, if you're a tradesman, you are going to do very well for yourself. Now, those are probably going to go away in the next 10 to 15 years. But if you're an electrician, a plumber, contracting, you're building out AI infrastructure, you're building out data centers, all these jobs are massively peaking right now. And people will become wildly wealthy just doing these trades. And people who want to take the risk to get out of the middle class will become business owners and will create companies that employ the middle class. That's what will save America. That's what will prevent people from not having a job when AI happens, because by the time we don't need to work with our hands anymore in the next 10 to 15 years, there will be 1,000 more jobs that people will be able to do. And maybe, yes, we won't have to work one day, and it won't be universal income. It will be a variable return of GDP profit back to the citizens of America who do their part, whatever the rule is at that point. But the inequality today is the inequality of those people who followed the rules, paid their dues, did what they needed to do, and they got shammed. Went to college, got a degree, and got shammed. That's the inequality we're talking about. It's not right that the politicians are the wealthiest people in this country now. Like,
I agree.
The wealthiest people Gavin Newsom's a millionaire. Okay. Ilhan Omar's a millionaire because of what? These people that sit, and where do you think they're learning it from? The connection is real. Look at your friends. Gavin Newsom is a freaking aristocrat, and he's friends with all the people defending all the people in Davos who are majority monarchs because he's a monarch.
Okay.
He wants to be. That's what people are waking up to, Len. That's what people are waking up to. Okay, go ahead, Chris. And I'll close it out with this because I still want to talk about the Board of Peace and Kushner because I do think the Board of Peace is, I want to talk about the Board of Peace, and I agree with you. The Board of Peace is so cheesy and funny. It sounds like almost like a G.I. Joe kind of thing. But at the same time, here's why the Board of Peace is so funny, and I don't want to lose track. The Board of Peace is funny because the Board of Peace is something that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden would have done if they went to Davos. And the fact that President Trump did it, they're mad because we're like, dude, that was our idea because that's such a kumbaya woke thing to do.
No, it's not.
And they're mad because Trump beat them at their own game. But I'll close it up with this.
Okay.
I'll close it up with this, the Board of Peace. Gavin Newsom is a multimillionaire because he got rich off the people's pockets. Ilhan Omar is wealthy because she got rich off the people's pockets. Tim Walz, all of these guys, they're all wealthy because of it. Hundreds of millions of dollars went back overseas. All these things that happened. And I agree, Len, certain people should be at Davos, but guess what? They can't slap leather. So they can't put the money down to rebuild Palestine or whatever, or Gaza, right? The fact that you have someone who's competent and capable, and I'm a Kushner fan, by the way. The fact that you have someone that's competent and capable that wants to come in and even commit to even working that area road, of course he's going to become wealthy doing it. That's capitalism. Of course. But the fact that you have someone who's even considering coming in there, and yeah, most people say, oh, it's control. But guess what? What type of control do you want? Do you want to just keep it the way it is right now? Or do you want to build it and make it something? You know, you can't have everything. You can't have all your cake and eat it too. So take what you got to take, guys. Because if someone like a Kushner doesn't come in and do that, then China's going to come in and do it. And we already know what Chinese infrastructure looks like. We all got a lesson in Chinese infrastructure because the U.S. silenced it when it went in and took over Venezuela.
Okay.
While they were there.
I got to
go ahead. Okay. Back to you.
Okay. So you are right as it relates to the waste, fraud, and abuse when you talk about Ilhan Omar. That's being investigated right now. When you look at what's going on in Minnesota from a fiscal standpoint, the whole issue with the food stamps and the daycares and all that, there is a lot of fraud. When you look at California and its budget deficits and how, Gavin Newsom talks about, it being a sanctuary state, even for undocumented, and our tax dollars are going for that. All of that's true. And I, as a part of that whole dichotomy between the haves and the have-nots, I cannot stand the idea for a politician using his or her seat as an elected official as a means to get wealthy. When you look at what Elizabeth Warren did, and when you look at what, Nancy Pelosi did with all of those investments and all of that, I have disdain for all of it because you use your political power to gain an extra seat at the table, and you give yourself an undue and unfair advantage over everybody else. I disdain all of that. Having said that, there also is disdain that you should be having if you look at it objectively as to what Trump has done and used and abused his office to gain so much more wealth, power, and influence that benefits he and his family. And so you talk about an aristocrat. Okay, we can suggest that he got money from his dad and he used it in real estate. Then he became broke. He became $9 billion in debt, and he was able to use his holdings in real estate to reacquire his wealth. We don't know what happened. And you even admitted that one of the reasons why he may not have turned in his taxes is that we might have found out that he was actually broke, which really doesn't matter, because if you're a good politician and you have the economic and financial wherewithal in a capitalistic system, you can get that back. I wouldn't hold that against you. But I think that would have been a shot to his ego. If I'm not suggesting that he was broke, if he was in fact broke, I wouldn't hold that against him. But I know his ego would have a hard time.
Hold on 1 second. About Trump.
Let me finish my point. And I'll jump back over. I promise I'll make it quick.
Okay.
So when you look at all of the crypto holdings and the companies and his Trump University that he started, and how his son is getting rich off of this crypto, and the crypto coins that he sold, and the Trump coins that he sold, and the Trump shoes that he sold, using his office as a position, that is no different. Now, I'm not saying that he's engaging in fraudulent behavior. I'm not saying that. I won't come with that energy, because that's not objectively true. What I'm saying is that he's using his office to enrich his personal coffers. And I'll close on this point so you can jump in. When you look at Gaza and the atrocities that have happened there, and the genocide that is taking place right now at the hands of the Israeli government, I have a very, very big problem with using the Board of Peace as a mechanism to go into this land to build upon the bones and the graves of slaughtered people so you can have an economic prosperity. I have a major problem with that. Now, they can come and say, oh, yeah, we're doing it for the people in the region and all that. I'll believe it when I see it, and I'm calling BS on that entire project, because I know that I believe that their number one objective is to go and they'll move in, they'll create economic prosperity, and they'll resign the least of these to certain corners that won't be able to get access into that whole revitalized Gaza place without having some kind of biometric scanning and a de facto slave state that says, hey, show us your papers, show us you belong here. And I think that all they're doing is finding a way to line their pockets, and Trump is going to be the chief liner of his pocket, and he's using his son-in-law to make it happen under the auspices of spreading real estate development and revitalizing a really hostile territory and changing the whole nature of it. I call BS on all of it.
Okay. I don't see it that way. I don't see it that way at all. And here's why. Because I have to measure it against his peers. Okay?
Who are you talking about? You say his peers.
First Trump.
Okay, gotcha.
I have to measure him against his peers. Okay? And his peers are obviously presidents. Let's measure him against his peers. So let's measure him against his peers, which would be Joe Biden, Clinton, and, well, would it be really Clinton? I mean, it could be Clinton, right? I mean, it would probably mostly be what? Obama and Biden would be his peers mostly, because the president before him and the president after him.
Okay.
Let's just keep it that way.
I'll go with that.
Okay, let's keep it that way. The stark difference here, and then why I don't care what Trump does. Now, obviously, if it's a blatant, obvious thing where Trump is enriching himself out of the presidential office, and I don't think any of that's happening. I mean, the fact that he doesn't even take his salary. Come on, Len. He doesn't even take his salary.
He doesn't need to.
I know he does. But wait. Hold on. Just because he's financially independent, Obama took it and Biden took it.
Okay.
See, that proves my point, though. You just proved my point, though.
No. Here, there's two different things, okay? There's one where you pimp the office to gain your wealth.
Len, no. Don't even open that can of worms. You're making my brain explode right now. Don't. You don't even want to get me started. Like, Biden pimped the office out. Biden pimped it out to the highest bidder. Like Biden's whole family pimped the office out for
with the whole.
Len, do we really want to talk about Hunter Biden? And Hunter Biden was on the board of God knows how many companies. That's pimping the office.
I agree.
Actually, that's pumping the office. That's not really. Is there a difference between pumping and pimping? I don't know. Maybe.
Okay, so I think I don't have any leg to stand on to suggest that other presidents have been unilaterally, wholeheartedly altruistic in their financial endeavors. I'm not arguing.
What you're admitting right now is that here's my point before you say that, because I'm elusive, okay?
Go ahead.
Here's why I think it's different, okay?
Okay.
Trump, before he was in presidential office, was already a businessman and already wealthy.
100%. I agree.
He was never, and Trump was always a Democrat. Trump was always on a Democrat, but Trump was more of like a Kennedy Democrat, right? Or a Reagan Democrat, maybe. Maybe Trump was more of a Reagan Democrat than he was a Reagan Democrat.
Yeah.
But he was more of a Reagan Democrat, okay? He was a Democrat that voted for Ronald Reagan. That's what he was, okay? That's what his family was. And his family did a lot for New York. Now, say what you want to say about, they made money and all this stuff and da-da-da-da-da-da. And if they ran some slumlord kind of stuff, they probably did it because, and not saying it was right, but the majority of people were doing it. Okay. We can't talk about that. It's in the past.
Okay.
But Trump, before office, was already financially independent. And not only was he financially independent, he was an entrepreneur. Now, he lost, let's say he did lose all his dad's money. He was bankrupt with the whole, I just watched an interview with Trump and David Letterman. Mm-hmm. And this is the first time. It's 1980 something or whatever. And they love this guy. How wealthy are you? Oh my God, you're worth so much money. They're idolizing him, right?
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
Great. So that's the thing. Trump was already a producer. He was a doer. He already came into office as a successful person making money. He didn't need the presidential office to make money or to be successful. Obama did. Biden did. These guys are both career politicians. So pimping out the office or siphoning off the office or enriching yourself because of the presidential office or because of your position, Trump didn't have to do that from the get. These other guys went into the office and came out of the office wealthier. Trump did not. Trump came out of the office broke. His first term, Trump was broke, and not only broke, he was under siege from all these lawsuits, and none of them stuck. None of them. They were all dismissed, except for that BS one with the Gene Carroll one, the defamation, that whole garbage. But besides the point,
let's do this. Because I know we could go back and forth on this and bore our audience, man. Because I know there's a lot of tit for tat, and you're right from the standpoint if he was already a made man before he hit office. So let's establish that. Okay. And so what I want to do is I want to hear your thoughts about the Board of Peace and what your thoughts are of it. And then what I want to do is I want to jump over to the ICE incident where another person was killed. I want to get your thoughts about that.
And we'll land from there. We can land from there.
Okay,
Look,
let's do that.
Let me just put this to bed first before that. Look, I think Greenland's a wrap. Everyone knows it's strategic. Everyone in NATO knows the U.S. needs to take control of Greenland. It's going to happen. It's happening fast. You even had, what was the guy, the president of NATO? He's a non-country leader, but he's the guy in charge of NATO or whatever, or in charge of something where he was there. Mm-hmm. He helped lay the groundwork. So you have a bipartisan guy that's not even a president of a country that's in charge of the whole organization who is drafting the framework. So everyone in the inside knows. The anti-Greenland is just fluff and energy and hot air at this point, I think, because everyone knows it's going to happen. Because again, at the end of the day, if NATO, and they even admitted it, you had the French president or whoever it was even admit that they can't even use the equipment they have without America. So, I mean, we all know this. So let me put that to bed.
And Denmark can't keep China or Russia out. So
we all know U.S. needs to just stop, right? Just stop. Stop. Unless someone wants to play the way U.S. is going to play in the game. And no one wants to play that way. And here's the problem. Even if they wanted to, no one can play that game. No one can play the game that we play. No one can play the game at the level we play it at. Sorry, that's the way the world is right now. right? And the winner's going to stay, do whatever they can to keep it. But absolutely, Len, to transition, Board of Peace. Look, I think it's cheesy. I think it's comical. I think it's hilarious. But I also think at the same time, it's such a brilliant strategic move, because I do wholeheartedly believe, as funny as it is, I think Kamala Harris and Joe Biden would have done something like that. They would have done something corny and weird like that, because it's so kumbaya.
But they didn't. So let's talk about what just happened.
And the only reason why they didn't is because they lost the election. And then we all know that. They lost. Let's call a spade a spade. They lost because they sucked, okay? If I lose, it's because I sucked, right? So they lost, okay? That's where people lose their jugular about it, because they're like, oh my God, how can you speak that way? It's just reality. People don't have issues with black and white, but black and white is what runs the world. I'm sorry, it just is. It's either on or off, kill or be killed, eaten or be eaten, light or dark, win or lose. There is some nuance in there, but no one wants to be lukewarm. No one, just as much as no one wants to be a lukewarm in anything, right? Now, I think the Board of Peace is strategically genius, because not only did he do it, the people on the other side, how can they argue the name, the Board of Peace? I mean, they were running on Kamala Harris's campaign was what? The campaign of what was it? Peace of love and hope, right? That's what it was, right? It was something crazy and corny like that. How can you argue with the Board of Peace? You can't. It's a positive thing. It's not negative. Most people look at it as a negative because it power vacuums away negative virtues. It absolutely takes away or blunts the negative virtues and negative intentions of the people who don't want to be it, i.e. the aristocratic monarchs of NATO. Oddly enough, the kings and queens of the world that are losing power right now don't want to be part of the Board of Peace. But what you do see is a lot of emerging markets and emerging countries that want to be industrialized and want to be out from underneath the foothold of, well, we're European and we're just so much better. We'll control your life. That's the majority of the countries. Trump is the man who went out to the playground at 5th grade recess and went, hey, all you countries that are getting bullied by NATO and all these aristocrats, come over here, I'll protect you. So we're getting mad at, for the United States, protecting the countries that are getting harassed by NATO and have all these imperialistic pressures put on them by these European countries that they're so much better than these countries and don't allow these third world countries that are part of mostly Board of Peace. And I don't want to say they're third world countries, but they're not, Glenn, they're not the who's of the who's. Trump just basically went out and called a timeout for all the bullies of the world on recess and is taking these countries and saying, hey, let's do deals with you. Look, America is blatantly saying it right now. The Board of Peace is blatantly saying it. The Board of Peace isn't, to me, the Board of Peace isn't a political movement. To me, the Board of Peace is United States of America unilaterally establishing new trading partnerships and new industrial partnerships and, yes, political partnerships and strategic partnerships with new countries that want to play ball with America today. And if you don't want to play ball with America, then you won't. And this is what infuriates everybody, because it's the same exact thing that the bad boy does. And this is why all the nice guys get mad, because the bad boys have options and America's getting new options. America put on fresh shoes, a fresh sport coat, and did a fresh haircut, went out and said, ladies, I am available. And he's building his options. And all these gals that got grotesquely ugly, I don't want to make it, because beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Look, if you like thicker women, lighter women, yes. I like all of them. I think they're all great. But you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. We live in a superficial world, but you know what I mean. America is out getting new options. While our old options got what? Spoiled, lazy, stale, pale, and out of shape. And that's why their economies suck. And they're envious because they're looking at America right now and they're looking at the numbers, because the raw numbers came out. We probably won't have time to talk about this. And they're going, damn, it's working. America is strong and robust. We're weak because the rest of the world has been picking at us for the last 40 years. And Trump is finally saying, no more. Kitchen is closed, baby, unless you play by our rules. That is, I think, is what the Board of Peace is.
Okay. All right, so let's do quick prediction and let's move to ICE. Where do you think the Board of Peace will be in 5 years, because that'll give Trump 3 years to finish his term and 2 years outside of it. What do you think is going to be happening with the border peace in 5 years, 2031?
I'm going to go out on the limb on this one, Len, and I'm a little crazy and you know it, but I think the Board of Peace will be the established organization for world trade and world production and world thought. I just think it's the new era where if you want to grow as a country, it'll be the framework of how to industrialize your country and how to revolutionize your country, not just industrialize it, but techocracy, right? Like not even techocracy, but I don't know if there's a word for that. But Len, you're the linguist here. You're the eloquent PhD here. So I mean, what word would you describe as the industrialize the world? What's that word? Do we even have a word for that yet?
I understand what you mean, like the technological equivalent of industrialization.
See, I just couldn't think fast enough to frame it that way. But
I get you.
But so we are watching that.
Okay, I think your idea has some credence to it, and I won't give my opinion about the reasoning for it. Here's my other question. Do you think that the Board of Peace will at some point replace NATO?
NATO is such a tricky one because NATO is so interwoven. But the reality is this, is that if you take the United States, and the United States already left the World Health Organization, right? So that's a signal, right? Like if I see that, that's like, ooh.
They were threatening to leave NATO in his first term.
Yes, exactly. So I think that if NATO, like I said, I think if the Board of Peace really grows that way, yeah. Because here's the thing. I think if you really want world peace, and President Trump, I really think is about peace. I don't think President Trump is a guy who wants war. I really don't. He's never like if you go back and you listen to Trump is doing exactly what he would said he would do back in the 80s and the 90s. Like he's very consistent. That's the thing. No one can argue about Trump is that he's saying the same stuff he's been saying since you've interviewed the guy. So I don't think he is. What I think is that the Board of Peace would replace NATO if the Board of Peace continues to grow in size and you get a few more large countries down there of influence and impact, and NATO continues to cry. Yes, because I think what you're seeing is NATO is an old world treaty, and NATO was designed in a world of the Cold War and World War II and the post-World War II era. So when you look at that, it only would make sense that if the world is changing, you want peace, how can you still operate under a treaty that governed the world to operate under a NATO treaty would assume that the world still thinks in that type of way that we need a NATO. Does that make sense? Because if we don't need a NATO, if the world's not thinking the way it was, then we wouldn't need a NATO, right? We need a NATO because we're thinking and doing things a certain way. So if we're not thinking and operating that way, then we shouldn't need a NATO. So yes, if it goes that way, then the Board of Peace would become that new treaty of, look, the world as a unilateral, innovating together, growing together, all of these things. I don't know if that makes sense, but yes,
I'm tracking with you. What my translation of what you're saying in a sentence is, NATO is a reflection of the old world post-war mindset and what needed to happen in order to establish a new world order. And in this case, NATO was a military installation, whereas I look at the Board of Peace as more of an economic installation. And I think, in my mind, I think what Trump sees it as is an answer to BRICS. It's another power play against BRICS. And I believe that it's a long-term economic play that will be used to keep America at the forefront so that we have relationships with up and coming players that will be players in the next 10, 20, 30 years economically, because the countries that are on board are typically countries that say, look, we have natural resources, We have access where you can have military bases here. We have rare earth minerals, and we're open for business. And because of that, when you look at the collection of those different countries that come under the world of peace, the United States puts an umbrella over them with military might and power. And then economically, it's going to be used to buttress their economies. And I think that's going to be the play. And in the process of doing that, because he's the board chair, he can move all of the chess pieces. I think he's playing three-dimensional chess, but I think so here's my bias, and I'll admit my bias. My bias is that I believe that most of his actions are coming from a place of him being a narcissist, and it's self uplifting. It's primarily for his benefit. And if there's other residual benefits, then he'll do it. But if he sees no personal benefit, my bias is that he only does things to enrich himself. Now, trying to objectively set that bias aside, I believe that for America, from America's perspective, to keep a foothold in its position on the world stage, creating new partnerships is necessary. Otherwise, when you look at $38 trillion deficit, when you look at Japan saying, oh, we're not quite certain about our relationship with America to continue servicing its debt, because we need $2 trillion a year just to service the debt on the existing deficit we have. So we need to have other people that are willing to take on that debt. Otherwise, because he's playing a very tricky, dangerous game of Russian roulette. If he loses, this economy is going to go to Hades, because of the fact that the whole world will see Trump as a bully, and they will exercise any leverage they have to decouple them from the dollar. The moment the dollar ceases to be the world's currency, we're done. And I think that he's doing everything that he can to hold on to that power. And so from that perspective, if in fact that's what he's doing, then I think it's a smart move. My bias is just, what is his motivation? And man, I always enjoy our back and forth conversations. And man, for those of you that are out there and you're watching content like this, we're two business owners just trying to have a point of view. We don't profess to be journalists. We don't profess to be out there, getting all firsthand information, but we do profess to be unbiased or articulate our biases. And we do profess to give you the best information that we know how, without spinning it just to present a point of view. But he brings his point of view. Chris, I'm talking about, my co-host. I bring my point of view. I'm his co-host. And regardless of who you agree with, hopefully sometimes you'll agree with him. Sometimes you'll agree with me, because that means that we're both saying the truth from time to time. And hopefully you'll disagree with both of us as well, because we're not always a monolith. So with that, Chris, man, any closing words before we part ways?
No, I just think it's a great time to be alive, and I think there's a lot of opportunities right now today to get yourself to the next level. There is a lot of things to be excited about, and I think, as always, this soon shall pass too. I mean, we think back to the '60s. Police were the streets water cannoning people, right? So this too shall pass, and I just think that, again, emphasize your point, Len, tone it down and just relax and enjoy your life. And it's not that big of a deal. Don't take things too seriously. But outside of that, Len, have a phenomenal week, and we'll see you guys on the next time. And like and subscribe if you like the content, and go ahead and comment. Len, see you on the next one, sir. Take care.
You too.
Conversation has given you clarity on your next steps. Please share this episode with someone who's walking the same path. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss future episodes. And remember, planning ahead isn't just prudent, it's an act of care. Thanks for joining us. And we'll see you next time on The Family Office.